Ladies and gentlemen, we should make a start. Thank you all very much for coming. Get comfortable. Where's Mary? There's Mary. There's Bonnie. There's Doug, who's missing along there. Who's beside you, Lee? Is that
Rose?
Oh, that's Rosie. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming today. Welcome to our new boardroom. This is in Union Station, about which you will hear more in a few minutes. But we're delighted to be here, and we're delighted to have you. We hope the sound system is better for you. And you can, how's it sound? Pretty good?
It's hard because of this thing, but Lena's going to try to get another thing for me.
Good. Well, we're working on it. We're working on it. We're doing better. We hope the screens can be seen. There's a screen back there, a screen up there, and we've got microphones in front of us, so we hope it's going to work well. That's a natural bridge to the second item I wanted to refer to, which is to recognize the person who got us here and who made all this possible. Peter Smith was the chair of GO, and an outstanding chair of GO. He then was the vice chair of the new Metrolinx, and Peter stepped down from the board about 6 months ago, but he refused to come to a meeting to be recognized until he could hold a meeting in this room, because one of Peter's most lasting contributions to the welfare of GO and Metrolinx was to be our lead advocate for finding an arrangement with the city and with the federal government and the province that we could have our headquarters here, and that we could be an important part of the restoration, renovation, and expansion of Union Station. So, Peter, thank you for coming today. Let me say on behalf of your colleagues, your former colleagues at Metrolinx and at GO, you were a great force for good. You did a fabulous job at GO. You did a fabulous job at Metrolinx. You've been one of our greatest supporters and advocates. You brought great entrepreneurial and business judgment to our work. You brought regional judgment to our work, and you made the entire board and management team better in your long years of service, and it's a lasting, important, positive contribution. It's not the only one you have made in your career by any means. Chair of CMHC, Order of Canada for your work in lots of spheres, so you've done a ton of good things. But I hope your work at Metrolinx and GO takes a place in that pantheon of the things you're proud of that you've done in your life, because we're enormously proud of the work you did. We're very grateful for it. We have two things we want to do. The first is we have a certificate framed here for you saying that Peter Smith, Metrolinx recognizes Peter R. Smith in appreciation of your valuable contributions and dedicated service to the GO Transit Board of Directors as chair and to the Metrolinx Board of Directors as vice chair from April 14th, 2004 to January 13, 2013. And in recognition of that, the second thing we want to announce is that because you got us here, we have named this the Peter R. Smith Boardroom. And we invite you to come up and receive this from Bruce and me down this end and to say a few words.
Reason why I'm thrilled and surprised. But thank you really for inviting me here today. This is magnificent, and coming in here today is just quite an experience and a tremendous achievement for all of you as board members and the staff who have worked tirelessly to get this to where it is. And I'm sure that in your work in the future you'll benefit from this great place. I was thinking as I was coming here, how much of my life is still touched by Metrolinx and GO Transit? How much of my experience day to day in my business, in the contacts I have in business, in my family? I have a nephew that works on the air rail link. It is unbelievable the extent to which Metrolinx and GO Transit has affected my life and continues to affect it in many, many ways, from a transportation point of view, from a business point of view, from a family connection. And I think that if we're all honest, we'll all realize that that's the case for all of us and all of our families, that the tremendous good that this organization and this system does for everybody in this city and in this region. In terms of Union Station, I couldn't be more proud of the people I worked with, including most of you and the staff to help, start this. You guys took it all the way and finished it, but to start the process, because I always said, and Gary was a great supporter in this, that this is the transportation hub of this country. It serves more people daily from a transportation perspective than any place in Canada. It is a jewel in our system, and what you are doing and what you continue to do in conjunction with your partners will benefit Canadians forever. And congratulations on what you do. There's two things I'd like to say. First, I told you my nephew works here, and I'm very proud of him and very proud of you for hiring him, without my interference at all, I might add. But my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, Bruce, I don't know if you know this. He worked for CP Rail for 41 years. When he retired, he was the general manager of operations here at Union Station and worked for the vice president. And so my kids, my young son and my nephew used to come up and play in his office when they were little tiny kids. And his office was right next to the office that you now hold. So I know this building inside out. I also know that even after he retired, he had a parking spot under the building, and he used to free until he passed away. And he used to come down and bring my son and my nephew and park there and then walk along the Skyway to the Blue Jays game. I can tell you that my late father-in-law would be very, very proud of the work that you've done. And this Union Station was his life, and it is the life for many, many people. And I'm particularly happy that you invited me here today when you're recognizing Gary McNeil, because you said I'd been here for quite a long time. You've been here a lot longer than me, and Gary and all the team that worked with Gary have done a magnificent job, as you know, Bruce, and thank you for inviting me here on the day that you recognize him. I'm very proud of the time I spent here. I'm very proud of you folks. You ought to be proud of yourselves for what you do to contribute to the life of this city, this region, and this country, and continue the good work. And thanks so very, very much. And also, if you don't mind, I'd like to congratulate Greg Percy on his promotion. I think I'm really pleased with the decision that you folks made, and I think you'll benefit greatly from that. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you very much, and thank you for that natural bridge to the next point I wanted to note, which is today is the first meeting of the Metrolinx board, or the GO board, in 14 years that Gary McNeil has not been at the helm. In November, Gary stood down after a fabulous 14-year run leading GO. Greg Percy, as Peter just indicated, has been promoted to succeed Gary, and we congratulate you, Greg, on that, and have every confidence you'll do a terrific job. But you, as you well know, have very large shoes to fill. We've had a number of times we've tried to say thank you to Gary. I'm not going to be able to command words adequate to describe, Gary, the full range of your contribution, the full range of respect and affection in which you are held throughout our organization. I think it was all captured best by your accepting on behalf of your entire team this spring the APTA award for the outstanding public large transportation system in North America. This is the Academy Award this is the Oscar for transit systems in North America, and for Gary in his final year with all the wonderful things year after year building, getting better and better and better. It couldn't have been better timing that all be captured and recognized in that award which you accepted on behalf of everyone at GO. You've done a terrific job for us. You're one of the great leaders in public transportation, transit, not just in Canada, but in North America. You're respected by everyone here. Everybody on the board is very, very grateful for what you did for us. We admire you for going out at the very top. Some people stay too long in jobs. Some guys time it and get out when they're at their absolute peak of performance. You made it all look easy. It wasn't easy, I know that, but you got so good at it, and so skilled at it and know the whole place so well. Our best year was your last year, and every year you were served was better and better and better and better, and it's a great achievement. We're very grateful, and we simply wanted to have you come today, since it's our first meeting, since you stood down, to recognize you. We have a couple of things we wanted to give you. One is a plaque, which is presented to Gary McNeil in honor of the integrity, leadership, and commitment you showed as president of Go Transit, November '99 to November 2013. And we also have a retirement award to you presented in honor of your retirement and to thank you for your loyalty and your service. We hope you'll come up and receive both of these.
Well, thank you very much. It really was an honor actually to be the head of Go Transit for 14 years. It's one of those few things where at the end of it all, you can say you've actually accomplished what you actually intended to do. A mentor of mine once told me that you should always leave an organization better than it was when you first arrived. And by far, this organization is a lot stronger, a lot greater, and the service that we deliver is a lot better. But that doesn't happen without the support of the board, and all the boards that I've had underneath me have performed well for Go and have really respected what we were trying to do for the GTHA, but also the province. The province in their support of all of the things that we were trying to do was very, very important. But the most important thing really is the staff, the people that are actually involved in this, and it doesn't matter whether it's the clerk in the office or the bus driver or station attendant or one of the directors or vice presidents. We were always looking at trying to make things better for Go. They did make my job easy in many ways, and I think that's probably something that I reflect on and say this is really a great organization. There's a lot of promise in the future, I think, for even more things to happen. Looking forward to it, and I'm probably going to be in the background somewhere helping out in some way, making sure that this organization keeps growing. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Gary, and you're welcome here at all times in the Peter R. Smith boardroom. The last thing I want to say by way of retirements and passings are that Frances Lankin, who served as a member of this board, resigned from the board effective, I think, the end of November, because she's taken a new provincial appointment and wasn't able to have both provincial appointments. So she was a very valuable contributor in her all too brief service here, made a really nice commitment, and she stands down with a lot of regret that she couldn't do the two together, but we will miss her for that. That brings us then to the agenda, and the first item on the agenda is the call to order by me. I have called us to order, I've discharged my duties, and I turn it over to you, President, for the second item, which is the CEO's report.
Thank you very much, and I'll be very brief. First of all, I just wanted to report to the board that Metrolinx had been awarded one of the top 100 employers in the Greater Toronto Area most recently, and we believe that this is an important indication of our continuing improvement, enhancement, richness as an organization and as an employer of choice in the organization and more broadly in Ontario and in Canada. It complements and supports the award that we received last year as one of the most admired work cultures in Canada in the public service. And it complements, of course, the recent award by the American Public Transit Association with Go Transit as one of the top large outstanding transit services in the region. So we're very proud of that, and I just wanted to make sure the board were all aware of that honor that came to us. Now, the second item, I actually wanted to do a brief report and have Greg Percy join me at the table as well for this. This is really in the context of our ongoing commitment to service to our customers. And as I reported to the board by email last night, we did have some significant customer impacts in our service yesterday. And first of all, I'd like to apologize to our customers and thank them for their patience as we managed our way through the service impacts and the restoration of service this morning. There were three interrelated items that occurred in the middle of the afternoon yesterday. The first being work that was being done on a bridge by a contractor working for the City of Toronto at Kennedy Road, where some damage was done to the bridge that caused some debris to fall onto the railway tracks and closed both the Lakeshore East corridor as well as the Stouffville corridor for a period of time completely. And then once it was able to be opened, we could only open 2 of the 3 tracks, so we were down our capacity by about 1/3 for the remaining of the peak period and into the evening service. At the same time, we also had 2 of our crossing controls fail for a period of a time that exacerbated the impacts on the Lakeshore East corridor. And then, because all things happen in threes, there was also a Via Rail train that had operational issues that blocked the corridor for a period of time. So between the City of Toronto activity of the contractor, the Via train activity, and some of our own mechanical issues, there were some significant impacts that basically rippled throughout the entire system over the course of the evening. And crews did work very, very hard over the course of the night to make sure that the corridor was open in Lakeshore East for this morning. I'm pleased to report that that was completed. And of course, our number one priority in all these kinds of situations is to make sure that we're addressing the safety of our customers, our employees, and of our contractors. And we were able to make sure that everybody made it home safely. And that is, of course, our job number one. So Greg is here to add anything, correct me in terms of some of the information I provided, or to answer any questions from the board who may want to have more information with our service disruptions last night.
Thanks, Bruce. Last night was very challenging for GO Transit and for our customers. The good news is we did get everybody home and safely, and that we did get the service up and running again first thing this morning, and that's to the commitment of our staff and our partners who worked right through the night and opened up the 3rd track at Kennedy Road right at 7 o'clock this morning. The other follow-up perhaps is that we have honored the service guarantee for those passengers that were caught up in those service challenges from last night on all 3 of those corridors that were impacted. And whereas technically that was not an eligible event, we felt that we owed that to our customers for the level of inconvenience that they had to endure last night.
Thanks, Rick.
Happy to answer any questions.
Nicholas.
Maybe you could explain how you communicated these issues to your ridership and what methods did you use for that?
Sure. We would we do service status updates to our passengers by corridor. So we had those out right away. As soon as we know anything, we would get those out to them so they can plan their trips home. So we kept that up through the evening. Then when we know there's going to be a delay, we would get that out early as well. So for the Kennedy Road, we got out early saying that there could be delays, and in fact, we were operating on 2/3 capacity there. So we try to get that out. It's really important for us and it's consistent with our passenger charter to keep our customers in the know. And we try very hard. We also do announcements on board, so we communicate with those impacted trains, and the customer service ambassadors make those up-to-date status updates to our passengers on board each train as well.
Anything else? Thank you, Greg. Anything else, Bruce, in your president's remarks?
No, I guess the only thing I would just reinforce is that to thank the staff for all the work they did working overnight to get service back up and running. And of course, our objective is to avoid and minimize these events as much as we possibly can. So thanks very much, Greg, and I have no further updates for you at this time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to our president? Anybody wishes to pose at this time? Connie.
I just had one question. In the 3 items that emerged, 2 of them were other entities that were involved. So presumably we have a triage process arranged with other entities that are working that affect our services.
Absolutely. We would be doing a full debrief today on all aspects, be it service delivery, be it communications. It's all about the learnings and making sure it doesn't happen again. So we'll be in touch with both VIA and we'll work with the City of Toronto on that. Yes.
We've decided to change the agenda a bit. and move item 20, which is the fare increase proposal, up to the next item on the agenda. The reason for this is two of our directors have to catch airplanes and wouldn't be here if we didn't reach it till the end of the agenda, and I wanted to give all directors the opportunity to participate in this item. And with that, Bruce, do you wish to introduce this, or is it going to go straight to Robert?
I would go straight to Robert.
Okay, I have with
Robert Siddle.
thank you. I have with me David Gould and Steve Naylor. David is my director of finance, and Steve is my director of budget. So please feel free when we get through the presentation to ask questions. I'll go quickly through the presentation. Again, each year we have looked at a fare increase, and Go Transit has tried to do that on a yearly basis. It's intended to ensure that the fare in any one year is as moderate as it can be, depending on what we're trying to accomplish as a corporation in terms of the service delivery for the upcoming year. 2 years ago, we went to a 3-tier fare increase, as we thought that better suited our system of how we charge fares for our service. And in this particular year, we are proposing that we increase the price differential between paper tickets and Presto to encourage people to continue to move towards Presto as a means of paying their fares. Again, the considerations in terms of coming up with a fare increase, we start pretty much at the start of, it's pretty much a 12-month process of coming up with our business plan. We start with a detailed long-term plan that is up on our website in terms of a capital plan, and then we move to a 5-year strategic plan that's much more detailed than our long-term planning, and then we move into a yearly business plan. Pretty much everybody in the corporation participates in the process of developing the plans and ensuring that we do a lot of due diligence in terms of coming up with where we spend money and ensuring that we spend money as wisely as we possibly can. Results of the business plan that we've put forward to this board and to the province in terms of the Ministry of Transportation for 14-15 is building on the service enhancements that we have made this current year and proposing future enhancements for the year 14-15. It's ensuring that we retain the reliability and the customer service that our customers have become accustomed to of this corporation. It's building in the operating and maintenance costs of the continued infrastructure that we put into service as a corporation, and it reflects the cost drivers and the increases that we're expecting in the key cost drivers based in this corporation. The service growth that we've had over the last year and the year that we're in, our fiscal year ends March 31st, 2014, has been significant this year, starting with 30-minute rail service on the lakeshore, an additional 12 coach trains throughout all the corridors, additional peak trains on the Stouffville line. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, Chair. I think people can read the screen, but we have had a great year in terms of increasing the amount of service and maintaining the quality service that we provide to this region. The service has also been supported by new infrastructure coming on, an additional 50 rail coaches and 30 double-decker buses, 4 new parking structures that increase our parking capacity significantly by 4,500 new parking spaces across the region. Expanded bus storage facilities at Streetsville, a new rail layover at Richmond Hill corridor that allows us to improve our services on that corridor, and fueling services at Barrie and Lincolnville rail storage. The recommendation of the fare increase this year is consistent with the last 3 years, that it be a blended approach. Again, it's consistent with the fact that we operate on a fare by distance approach as a corporation, and again, I'll refer people to the screen in terms of the impact it has on the various levels of fares. The thing that I would like to bring to people's attention is the increase in the discount between the adult fares and the Presto adult fares, and we are proposing increasing that from 8.75 to 10%. Again, that is consistent with our student and senior fares. Again, a sample of fares, and all this stuff will go up on our website and in our future communications as we proceed forward to the fare increase. A sample of the fare increases is up on the screen, and you can see it as it applies to different parts of our corridors. In summary, the increase is, if you're a Presto card holder, on average it'd be 4.8%. If you are using paper tickets, it ends up being about a 6% increase in fares. It's an overall average of 5%. Our recommendation in terms of the implementation date for this fare increase is February 1st to ensure that it is in place, providing revenue to this corporation for the fiscal year of 14-15. It's after taking into consideration the concessions and discounts, it's an effective average increase of approximately 31 cents. And it provides, in terms of our business plan, an expectation of approximate revenue of $21 million to help us balance our fiscal plan. The other thing I'd like to bring to the attention is when we are looking at fare increases on the revenue side, we have three major areas of revenue: fare revenue, non-fare revenue, and the subsidy we receive from the province. So again, we've been able to get from the province, and are expecting for 14-15 to get an increase in our operating subsidy from the province of $25 million. We believe that allows us to keep the revenue cost ratio in the high 70s to 80% for low service.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is the resolution and the bylaw change. And I think we should start with just taking questions to you and your team. And then we'll, after that, invite any debate on the topic. But let me start with questions, and maybe I'll just throw one out just to get us started, and then I'll turn to Lee. Am I right in reading this that but for the increase in the provincial subsidy that we're receiving, the fare increase would have had to be about twice as large to reach the same budgetary position? So it's about a half to our customers and about a half to the province.
Yes.
I want to sort of bring up the 900-pound gorilla in the room on fare increases. First of all, I'll be supporting the increase, but that's around parking. We've got 60,000 some odd parking spots. We don't generate revenue really from those. They're extremely well utilized. In many cases, they're effectively gone with the morning rush in a lot of places. And it seems to me at some point in time we need to be thinking pretty seriously about charging for parking, aside from tickets or anything else. And the reason seem, or at least three of the reasons seem pretty obvious. One is that it generates revenue. Two is that it incents the right kind of behavior that we want with local transit and local transit utilization and so on. And the third thing is that we've got all-day go service on our firmly on our radar screen and in our planning. And when you're standing at those go stations at 10 o'clock in the morning and they're packed as far as cars are concerned, you really wonder a little bit about how the all-day go is going to work if you can't park there. So for a bunch of virtuous reasons, as well as generating some cash, I think it's something that we should take a closer look at as time goes on, and particularly in conjunction with the all-day go issue.
Before you answer, let me see if anybody else wants to comment on that issue.
I'd happily add my voice to that, as people around this table know that that's a common theme that I harp away at regularly. My view is that demand is relatively inelastic, given the growth of the region I think we have a highly efficient service. I think we're expanding continuously. We're adding new equipment. We're adding more trains more frequently. We're adding more facilities, building parking. And it just strikes me that that charging for parking has to be a part of the mix of how we efficiently utilize our assets, and how we also bring more revenue into Metrolinx, given the continuous demands we're going to have to build out this service over the next 25 years. So I think that's a theme that the public should be talking about. I think the media should be talking about it. And I think there should be pressure brought to bear on something that I appreciate is not. I'd like to have free parking downtown, but I don't have it when I come downtown. So I think that the pressure has to come from outside Metrolinx, both to Metrolinx and to the province, to say, gee, you've got 66,000 parking spaces or whatever the number is. How come you're not charging for it?
Robert, do you want to comment on?
Yes, every year we look at every possible source of revenue. So I want to let the board know that it's something that in order to ensure that we reach a balanced budget and that we're making sure that we're sustainable as a corporation, we look at non-fare revenue. We encourage the province to give us more money. And we look at how we could equitably charge customers for the service we're providing. I think the other issue when it comes to paid parking is an issue about encouraging mobility shift at stations and encouraging people to move away from parking to walking, biking, and coming into our stations through municipal transit. So I think, again, from a longer-term perspective, as we continue to grow, this corporation needs to look at and continue to look at its revenue opportunities, and we need to make sure that what we do is that we put that to the public and to our customers in an equitable manner. So I don't think the issue is going to weigh, and yes, we are seriously always looking at it every year as part of our annual business plan.
Robert, how do you think about it holding constant the level of revenue? Forget raising revenue, but just holding constant. How do you think about the fairness of 75% of our customers drive and park, and 25% take public transit, bicycle, walk, whatever? Do you think about whether there's a fairness issue in this, quite apart from increasing revenue?
I think yes, personally, I think there is a fairness issue there, and I know that Leslie and her staff look at that as all of us do as a corporation. But I mean, from my perspective as CFO, a customer is my first interest in getting the customer to come and use the service. So I do not want to do something that discourages customers from moving away from our service. Again, whether it's revenue, we can do an introduction of a parking fee and make it revenue neutral by reducing our actual fares. That's one option that we face as a corporation. So there are ways that we could introduce it and have it be revenue neutral. But again, I think we need to look at the way it impacts our customers, but always keeping in mind that you want loyal customers. That's how you grow a business, and that's how you maintain a business.
Bruce, do you want to comment on this?
I support everything that Robert has just gone through. The other point I just remind the board is that as part of the investment strategy that was adopted by the board in May, one of the measures that was put forward as part of that strategy was pay for parking at a variety of venues, including transit stations. So it certainly is something that we've talked about before, something that I think we're on record as a corporation of supporting in the right context, in the right framework. We need to do more work if we are going to go down that path. And we need to find the right balance between incenting the right kinds of behaviors in terms of the use of parking across the system, how people access transit stations, as well as how we continue to pay for the infrastructure that people want to have in more amounts by the corporation as well.
Rahul, you're next.
Sure. Well, to state the obvious, people don't like having their fees raised any more than we like raising folks' fees. So, and I think that the average person in the public's not gonna be persuaded by our cost revenue ratio. That's not the most relevant thing in their mind. So I'd like to come at this from the other side, which help us understand a little bit by what happens if we don't raise the fee by this. So what's the impact of that, particularly, let's say in the short term, so people can understand that a little bit, but even in the long term, because we've got this long-term play on integrated transit, the big move and things like that. Can you connect those dots just a little bit?
You can't grow the system if you don't have revenues grow. So, I mean, that's the simplest thing, is that we are growing, you know, and the introduction this year is an example of the 30-minute service. When that service first comes up, we don't get as many customers on that service as what we will ultimately get. And therefore, the RC ratio is not as good on that particular type of service as it is in any time where we're introducing, you know, new services. You build it over time. So again, for the long, you need things that help you cushion from those early hits in terms of revenues, so that you can get the revenues in the future that come when those services are well established and in place. So from my perspective, if you don't do the fare increase, you're looking at slowing down the growth of the service that we've provided. And the other impact, I think, is ultimately on, you know, where I've seen corporations cut corners is on things like repairs and maintenance and not doing that. And if you start playing around and doing that, you impact the quality of service you provide, and you have reliability issues. So again, I think what we try to do in our business plan is balance and ensure that not only can we provide more service, but we can also ensure that we're maintaining the quality service that we currently provide.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment and a question, and first off, I'm supportive of this, and as the chair of our Customer Service Advisory Committee, which represents a lot of our riders, they were consulted about this potential fare increase, and I can tell you that generally there was pretty good support because they see the difference in terms of the increase in services. And we know from the work that we're doing in our own Customer Services Committee of the board that capacity is a big issue. And at the end of the day, we have to continue to deliver capacity if we're going to get ahead of the demand, and that's a big issue. So I think that's an important element, and the customer sees that. The question I have, though, is the flip side of Lee's question, I think, in terms of the cost side and driving efficiency and innovation in our organization. So it's always, yes, we're looking for revenue. What are we doing to make sure that we're doing the best job we can in terms of driving efficiency and maintaining costs or cost reductions where they're possible? And we know that in a lot of organizations, particularly in the private sector, that's a big element of part of what they do, and looking at how they drive that. So maybe, Robert, you can help me a little bit to make sure that, you know, because I hear it from our customers, are you guys doing everything you can to make sure that this is an efficient organization instead of always going for new revenue?
So the three of us up at the table can't get to cost savings. The way you get to cost savings is you get every person in the corporation thinking about doing things as cost effective as possible. If you go out and you start talking to the people that grind the wheels on our trains to ensure that they operate efficiently and effectively, like, they know exactly how many grinds they can get out of it. They are precise in terms of how much they grind off, so that they're not grinding off too much. They know at the end of the day that their goal is to try and get as long a useful life out of that wheel as possible. And you know, the example that we have, if you look at those coaches, the first Bombardier coaches came in, I think, in 1967. We still have a lot of those coaches refurbished, but still operating on the lines and providing service to the public. So I mean, back to, you know, what we've talked about as an organization, having that staff that believe that they're operating something that is to the benefit to the public, and having that pride of operations, and always looking at ways of improving on those operations. I mean, I think everybody I talk to, and I think Bruce and Gary and Greg and others would agree that, like, each one of our employees is concerned about their contribution to what they're doing to help ensure that we can operate this as efficient and effective as possible. So I I think, again, we take a look at the bigger picture of what other things we can do differently, but at the end of the day, it's your individual employees that actually help you get to where you want to get to.
Bruce?
Just to add to what Roberts has indicated, efficiency in how we drive our service expansion, our day-to-day operations is really critical. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of choices that we've made that I think demonstrate some of our commitment to efficiency. So we've expanded the role of double-decker buses in the system, which means we can put out more capacity with lower labor costs as opposed to the number of drivers that you are operating the bus fleet. Moving to 12-car trains is a way of increasing capacity, more seats, while managing the operating costs of providing that operating capacity. Building layovers at the ends of our rail corridors, so we reduce the number of non-revenue trips, which cost money to provide, to take the train out to the end of the Richmond Hill line, for example, in the morning. If we can store the train, fuel the train out in that location, then that saves money and therefore reduces our costs. And to the extent that we can invest in preventative maintenance so that we have less incidents and events that we have to respond to over the course of a service day. So I think I would agree with Robert completely that efficiency is a journey, and it's a journey that involves every one of our employees. But we're trying to make the kinds of choices that makes the system as efficient as we can going forward.
Bonnie and then Howard.
A quick question, and then maybe one that takes a little more thinking. The February 1st, 2014 implementation date, is that because that's as soon as we can get systems geared up to accept the change, or is that date picked for a particular reason? That might be civil. The second one is, if you looked at our annual increase in administrative costs, normalized the growth, because there's got to be some factor for growth given the growth that's going on. What would our annual increase in administrative costs be?
Percentages stayed relatively the
Yeah,
same,
so
around 8% in terms of what we deem to be administrative overhead. I'm not sure about the dollar increase off the top of my head, but percentage-wise, it stayed maintained the same.
In answer to your first question, yes, you're correct. It's a combination of two factors. That's when we can get the system ready to do the fare increase, and the second part is to ensure that we have the fare in place for the full year so that we can achieve the 21 million estimate in revenue.
Howard?
Yes, thanks. As a supplement to Bonnie's question, knowing that you're doing all you can to contain costs and you're building out the service, what can the consumer expect beyond 2014 in terms of average cost? That's very critical in terms of planning budgets, in terms of fixed incomes. So what's your crystal ball today?
Well, it goes back to my opening statement that we try to do a small fare increase every year. And if we don't do a fare increase, then it puts us in an awkward situation the following year because we're back a year in terms of the cost of increase, but the revenues haven't increased at the same level. So again, I would not. We do not set fares on more than 1 year at a time basis. But
there's no target, for example, looking at this year, 2014's increase, there's no target to try to continue to that, or is there a bandwidth of?
No, like I said, we haven't actually worked out a plan to say that 5%.
Your basic thesis put earlier, I think, was if there's going to be continual service enhancement and expansion, in the absence of the province bearing the full cost of that expansion, there'll be a need for a modest fare increase each year if the province continues to invest in sharing the cost of the expansion.
Yes, I was thinking that's correct.
That'd be the presumption. That's not a plan yet, and it has to come to this board each time, but if you were trying to create expectations, you would anticipate.
Yes, I was answering the question more specifically. Could customers look to a 3% fare increase next year or another 5% fare increase, and we're not at that point.
Are there any other questions or comments? I haven't heard anybody indicate they are dissenting from the recommendation. Is Does anybody else want to say anything? Nick, do you want to say anything from your perspective, Chair of the Customer Service Committee?
No, we've discussed this at our committee, and we completely agree that having an incremental increase every year is a much better way from our customer point of view to be able to accept, so that they know something's coming. It's a relatively small increase, and instead of large increases all at the same time. So we would vote for it.
Would you move the motion?
Thank you.
You do that? Lee, would you second the motion?
Be happy to.
Despite the quote, free parking? For now?
For now.
For now.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's passed unanimously. Thank you, very good job. You guys didn't have anything you wanted to add?
Nope.
You sure? Both good? Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your work on it. We'll now cycle back to earlier in the agenda, and the first item on it is the National Heritage Value of Union Station. Shelley Bruce and Michael. Where's Michael? Hey, you guys. Thank you for coming. Thanks for telling us about this. Who's gonna lead?
I'll just do an introduction.
Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, when Union Station was built 80 years ago, the railway companies were synonymous with moving people in the area. And the railway company offices were in this building in the West Wing. Today, Metrolinx is synonymous with moving people in the region, and it's only fitting that our head office is in this building. We've completed an extensive transformation of this space. It was neglected and largely vacant for the last 15 years. We had two key partners in this. First was the City of Toronto, which completed the base building renovations before selling the West Wing to us in September of last year. The second is Parks Canada. Parks Canada administers the federal government's heritage easement on the building, and we rely on them for approval of all the work, and we have to go through an extensive process. They've been great partners in that. Today, we have Shelley Bruce from Parks Canada here to give a presentation on the heritage of Union Station, both the West Wing and the building itself. Shelley is based in Vancouver, and we really appreciate that she was able to coordinate her schedule to be in Toronto today to speak to us.
Shelley, thank you for coming. Welcome to Metrolinx. Thank you for your help in getting us to where we are. Why don't you take the first minute to tell us who you are, and take the second minute to tell us how a park authority has control over the busiest transportation facility in Canada, and then make your presentation.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
Who are you? Tell us your background.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Michael, and thank you to all of you for the opportunity to be with you this morning at your first meeting in this fabulous new office for you. As mentioned, my name is Shelley Bruce. I work with Parks Canada, and I'm in the downtown Vancouver office. My title is Built Heritage Conservation Advisor. It's a bit of a mouthful, but what I'm largely responsible for is to work with national historic sites across the country, that's coast to coast and all the way up north. And I work with custodians and their conservation and design teams, and I advise them on sound heritage conservation practices, and I typically monitor their work as they undertake the conservation projects.
And what's your disciplinary background that prepares you for this high office?
I have a master's degree in architecture from the University of Manitoba, and I've specialized in architectural history and heritage conservation practices and philosophy. I've been with Parks Canada now about 5 years, and I've also worked at the municipal level, both for the City of Winnipeg and the City of Vancouver at the municipal level, doing development review and application review of heritage projects.
Just one last detail. Why would someone who has a national mandate be located so far away from most Canadians?
Well, it's because we are a national organization. We have, and
why aren't you in Ottawa instead of Vancouver?
Well, that's actually a very, very good question. But we have properties all across the country. So as a result, we have staff all across the country. My manager and the rest of my fabulous team that I work with are based in Gatineau or in Ottawa. And so I'm intimately connected with them on a daily basis, and we work together as a team. But it's really to our advantage to have people with different expertise and skill sets all across the country.
Got it. And why, the second question was why parks running transportation?
Well, we're not running transportation, but we are very much interested in conserving significant pieces of heritage in this country, whether it be national or cultural heritage. And so with Union Station, you have an exceptional National Historic Site. And when it left the federal inventory, a heritage easement was put on title through the Ontario Heritage Act. And that's a requirement that if major undertakings like the current revitalization project are underway, then we are an active participant in the decision-making process to ensure that we collectively protect this fantastic resource.
Thank you again for coming, and thank you for your partnership, and why don't you make the presentation?
Thank you. And I think one last thing I wanted to mention, just as an introduction, is that for some strange fluke, I'm actually working with 3 Union Stations right now. I'm working with Union Station in Winnipeg, which has a much more modest conservation project going on. But it's great working with that project because that's my hometown. I'm also working with a former Union Station in Ottawa right now, which is going to be made into a temporary home for the Senate. And different stories.
Has plans.
And of course, I'm working with all of you here at Toronto Union Station, and will be for the next couple of years seeing this project. So it's a great fluke.
And Ottawa is the Union Station. Is that the conference center?
That is the conference center right across the street from the
Union
Chateau
Station,
Laurier.
was it?
Yes, it was Union Station. It's been the Government of Canada Conference Center for the last several decades, and as the Senate chamber is going to go through a conservation project, we need to decant them into some place. So that's the project. So let me get started. I thought I should just give you a brief introduction about who Parks Canada is, because there are a lot of organizations with the name Parks in the name. Parks Canada is the country's largest heritage organization. We are responsible for an incredible network of natural and cultural resources across the country. We are responsible for 44 national parks, so that includes Banff. It also includes Georgia Bay Islands National Park that is featured there on the slide. A total of 167 national historic sites, such as Fort George, and now those are the ones that we own and operate. There are actually over 2,000 national historic sites across the country, and obviously most of those are in private ownership. And then finally, we're responsible for 4 national marine conservation areas, and we have an example here of Lake Superior National Marine Conservation Area, which is in Ontario. We have several pieces of legislation that allow us to do our work. We actually have 8 pieces, everything from our Agency Act, which gives us the ability to do what we do, to acts for national historic sites, lighthouses, railway stations, and even the Species at Risk Act that we co-manage with Environment Canada and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We are actually an agency. We're not a federal government department. We do have a CEO, and he reports directly to the Environment Minister. We're not under Heritage, as some people think. We are actually under the Department of Environment. This summer, we have a new minister. It's the Honorable Leona Aglukak, who is the Minister for Nunavut. I think the first thing we want to discuss a little bit is, why is this place of national historic significance? And the reason for designation is actually up there on the slide. We have an advisory committee that works at the national level. It's the Historic Sites and Monuments Board, and they make recommendations to our minister for places that are of national significance. So in 1975, Union Station was declared a National Historic Site because it is the finest example of Canada of train stations erected in the classical Beaux-Arts style during an era of expanding national rail networks and vigorous urban growth. So that's it in a nutshell. But of course, there are a whole bunch of reasons of why this place is significant at the community level. And we heard about that a little bit this morning with the introductory comments, hearing about sons and nephews and people and their personal stories associated with this fabulous place. This place is also significant because of its role in the history of railway and transportation networks. It's significant because of the people who have used it. So on this slide, we've got an image of the Prince of Wales on opening day in 1927. We also have this great glamour shot of Miss Vancouver posing there with a local actor. And the other reason why this place is so significant is because it's associated with immigration in this country. This was a major gateway into the country as people were arriving. So this is a great image here that was a bit of a tourism shot of a Dutch family arriving in Canada and figuring out where they were going to go next. As you're all too familiar, there's an enormous revitalization project underway, and Parks Canada has been one of the partners in this process. We're involved with some aspects, but certainly not all. And so I'm going to take you through some of the aspects that we've been involved with Metrolinx, and some of the work that's ongoing, and some of the future work that'll be still to come. When the conservation project started, Parks Canada, along with the City of Toronto and other stakeholders, had to do a lot of initial homework, and that was to look at the sort of tools we would use with our various teams of heritage consultants and design practitioners. So one of the first tools we decided we needed to use was the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada. This is a document that was recently revised in 2010, and this is a pan-Canadian document which most municipalities across this country have adopted, and this provides a really great decision-making tool about how to conserve historic buildings in this country. It's a tool I use day to day with all of my projects across the country, and it's one that we're using here with Toronto Union Station. We have other tools such as the Heritage Easement Agreement and a Commemorative Integrity Statement, which give us really clear direction about heritage values associated with the station, as well as the key physical elements of this building that are important for us to retain. In the early, about 2001 and onwards, various heritage consultants started to do various reports such as historic structures reports, heritage inventories, condition assessments, and so on. And these have been really instrumental documents in how we've proceeded with assessing the sort of proposals for the building over the last several years. These documents are really key because they've given us an indication of what still remains of the original building and what sort of condition those features are in. One of the major tools from those documents that came out of it was the decision to divide the building up into zones, and we call them gray and white zones. The gray zones are those spaces that don't really contribute to why this place is historically significant, or they have been heavily altered over time. So the decision was made that anything that was in a gray space was allowed to be changed in contemporary ways that were still suitable and sympathetic to the historic character of the place, but were truly contemporary. And then finally, the white zones were those really unique elements that were still original to the time of construction. So they would have had their original spatial planning, materials, details, finishes, and so on. And in those instances, those spaces would be conserved in a more rigorous, sort of pure way in order to maintain those character elements. So to give you an example of how Metrolinx has been involved with Parks Canada in this process, here's just a couple of snapshots from a consultant's report that we received. And we had a really strict process about how we were going to look at interventions to the building. It's a three-stage process. Stage one is looking at conceptual work, and this is an example of a conceptual package we received. Stage two was design development, and stage three was actual final design submissions. In this particular package, this is an illustration of the main floor of the West Wing. And here we see what is clearly the gray zone and the more delicate white zone. And the white zone consists of main floor space, which is the vestibule, lobby, staircase, and the maple corridors. And then what we see here in the photos are what the maple rooms were like when the project was just underway. So you can get a sense of what was left of the rooms and what we would be working with in the months ahead with this particular design team. On this slide, we see an example of a stage two submission with Metrolinx, and this is for an upper floor. It's the third floor public corridors, and some condition photos of what sort of material we were working with your design team. Some selective demolition had already occurred here, and we had a few surprises, as is very common through big projects like this. Things were revealed, such as skylights, and the phantom corridor on this floor, which was a corridor found between various layers of drywall. And what was important as we were going through stage two submissions with Metrolinx was we all had to be really flexible as we learned more about the building and what it was telling us. we had to have a really careful balancing act to ensure that your design team was going to be ensuring that they could meet your functional needs, your space needs, to meet your requirements, but we could ensure that that was happening in a way which is appropriate to the character of the building and maintaining the original elements that were still left. This is the first piece of major conservation work that's been completed here in the station. This is the Panorama Lounge, which was originally the public luncheon counter. We've got a great historic photograph here seeing all the stools at the counter, and then a variety of photos showing the work in progress. This is now the Panorama Lounge for Via Rail, and it was opened just earlier this year. Of course, the really exciting dig down is a pretty instrumental part of the revitalization project for you, with the addition of 2 additional floors below the building. This is an example of work where Parks Canada is not directly involved, but we do keep an eye on it, and we do get updates on how progress is being made on this aspect of the project. This work is still ongoing, and this is the conservation work on the concourses and the train shed. We are deeply involved in the restoration work of the platform and train shed immediately behind the head house, because this was the portion of the train shed that was actually still in very good original condition, and so we've taken a more of a restoration approach to that portion of the train shed. Other portions of the train shed were in not as pristine condition, and so the approach for conserving those portions is quite different. And so of course we now see the amazing glazed atrium space that you have in the middle of the train shed, and has been recently awarded a Design Excellence Award with Canadian Architect just last year. Now, just to conclude, there's a couple of interesting things on the horizon for the station that I wanted to share with you. The City of Toronto this summer announced the winner of a public art competition, and this is the winning entry, or at least, a screenshot of what it's going to look like. The winner is a firm from Brussels. It's a series of young architects. The name of their company is Labau, and their installation is called Flux. This is going to be located in the Front Street Moat, just under the pedestrian overpass. And this is a piece which is going to interpret the legacy of the Walks and Gardens Trust. It's going to be 70 meters long, and it's going to be interactive. What you see here in the illustration is a series of aluminum channels that will detect the motion of users. And as users pass through the space, it's going to animate it with a series of lights and sounds. So the name Flux is rather appropriate. It's a combination of the terms flow and lux. It's going to animate the space through the flow of pedestrian traffic. And lux, of course, is the international measurement of measuring illumination. So it's going to be an active, dynamic space, totally in keeping with the character of a dynamic place like
Where is this?
Union Station. This is in the Front Street Moat, underground, pedestrian walkway above, so it's semi-subterranean. The photo there on your left is what it currently looks like right now. It's full of construction materials and debris, but it's going to be an installation which will animate it. It'll bring light and activity to it as users are passing through it.
What's the cost?
Actually, the cost, I'm afraid I can't remember offhand.
Ballpark.
I'm sorry, it's fallen out of my brain. This will be installed by the end of 2014, and this will actually be their first public installation in North America. They had a temporary installation at Pearson International a couple of years ago. Finally, the City of Toronto released a request for proposals just the other week, and this is a request to pull together a consultant team to develop an heritage interpretation plan for Union Station. And this is an interesting part of how we conserve historic buildings, and this is another way that we hope to animate the building and encourage people to understand what the place is about. We're hoping to have a consultant in place by the end of January, and then their first bit of work will be completed by the fall or so of next year. The intent of the plan is to pull together the historic themes associated with this amazing building. Earlier this year, Parks Canada worked with the City of Toronto and an interesting group of stakeholders, some of you may have actually been involved in that process. Through that process, we've identified a few key historical themes, and that is going to be the core of what these consultants will be working with. And we hope that they'll be able to come up with some really interesting, dynamic, cutting-edge ways of animating and sharing the story of Union Station. There are a variety of opportunities through the space, through glazed vitrine display cases to other spaces throughout Union Station. So we're really looking forward to how that will be able to come together in the next year. Pieces will then be constructed and installed in 2015 and 2016.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank
Thank you for all your assistance. We're going to allow one question, Lee, only because we're well behind on our agenda.
Absolutely.
Lee, it's up to you to ask the question.
Briefly, of course. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It's really interesting to see the behind-the-scenes decision-making and rationale for the work that was done in Union Station. Actually, my question, I must say, is not related specifically to this, if you'll bear with me, because I need to go. We have two items that are coming up. We have a design review, and we have an item on the Young Eglinton Station. And as I watch this great presentation, I'm thinking that we around this table are creating the history of the future with the decisions that we're making here. And this is very interesting about how to interpret the past. But we should be mindful that we are creating something that must be enduring for the future. So when I won't be here for that, but when you get to that discussion, I think
Got it.
that's something to remember.
Good comment. Shelley, just let me ask you one question. Lee didn't ask a question. What's the chance of increasing the amount of light in the main hall? Is that inconsistent with architectural preservation light? It's such a gorgeous place down there, but it's quite depressingly dark all the time. Is that, are you forcing us to keep it dark, or is it, what's the story? Why can't we make it bright like Grand Central or like the stations, other restored stations, or Philadelphia? This one is as gorgeous as any of those, but it's about a quarter of the illumination.
Well, at the moment, not much of the conservation work that is proposed on the Grand Hall has actually been undertaken yet. So the design development for the lighting in that space is still being under consideration. So lighting levels in historic buildings is an interesting challenge because you want to be respectful of what the character was like, but also ensuring that it's meeting the needs of its current users. So that's certainly part of the dialogue that we're having as we're exploring the lighting options for the Grand Hall.
Hold a stakeholders meeting on that. I'd be happy to be invited.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you again.
And for your work.
Thank you.
That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the always eagerly anticipated report of the Customer Service Committee through its chair, Nicholas Mutton. Nicholas.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had another lively meeting yesterday of the Customer Service Committee with some very fulsome discussions. We'd like to report on a number of issues. The GO customer service accomplishments. First, GO Transit continues to improve its customer service. Overall satisfaction has improved to 81%, and 80% of customers would recommend GO Transit to others. With so many broad accomplishments in the last few years, GO Transit's now looking at specific areas of focus for improving customer service, such as improving capacity, simplifying communications, maximizing the use of technology, and continuing to anticipate and respond to customer needs. Accomplishments this year in capacity have included increased parking at Ajax, Pickering, Erindale, and Clarkson stations, the addition of 118 bus trips per month, the move from 10 to 12 coaches for 7 trains, and 30-minute Lakeshore line service. Communication improvements include expanded customer care hours for responding to social media customer communications, training with staff to improve service at the first point of contact, a tool on the GO website that provides real-time service updates. And recent technology accomplishments to date include launch of a campaign to increase awareness of tools available to customers to keep them in the know, and a refresh of GO's online timetables. Finally, in response to positive feedback from our customers, GO has made the quiet zones on the upper levels of rush hour trains as a permanent feature. We also had an update from GO's Customer Service Advisory Committee, ably chaired by board member Richard Corsill, who remarked a little earlier. about commentary from them. Members provided feedback on key customer service projects, including a customer courtesy campaign, social media engagement, and a regional trip planner that will offer one-stop travel information within the GTHA. As usual, we had an incident review during our meeting, and this one about the Dufferin Bridge emergency closure. The decision was made to shut down service over a weekend, 2 weekends ago, such that the bridge could be removed in a timely and safe manner. To assist the customers, Go Transit added special weekend bus service and adjusted existing service, added additional transit safety and station staff at key locations, and launched a customer and stakeholders communication plan that started 2 weeks before the closure. And we also discussed at length design excellence at Metrolinx. The committee was updated on the progress of the Metrolinx Design Excellence Program, and there are several initiatives underway. For Go Transit, design guidelines are being developed to provide a consistent approach to Go projects. For Crosstown, a strategy for signage and wayfinding that focuses on customer needs. And finally, improvements have been made to the procurement process that will make it easier to partner with high-quality design consultants. That's our update from this committee meeting. We look forward to updating again in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Nick? Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate that work. And Richard, did you want to add anything from your committee?
I think I've provided.
Your earlier comment was sufficient? Thank you. That brings us to Leslie Wu. Where's Leslie? Come on up. This is a very hot issue right now, Leslie. GTA fare and service integration.
Thank you very much. I'm going to provide a brief overview on the work plan of what we're doing. Some of you may or may not remember that one of the most significant transformative actions identified in the big move was the implementation of a region-wide integrated fare system that allows users to pay a seamless integrated fare across all of the operators. There's 10, including Go, in the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area. We are fortunate since 2008 that the advancement of Presto Smart Card system has now made fare and service integration even more realizable because we have the technology to afford travelers a more seamless connection, and that's a very good foundation. In addition, just as a reminder, in May of this year, in the investment strategy, we spoke to the importance of developing an integrated fare plan, a regional fare integration plan, and a regional service integration plan. So this work is being initiated. I'd like to introduce Chris Burke, who is our manager of Go Planning. Chris will be leading the effort on our end with both aspects, both fare and service integration. What I would point out is that fare and service integration is, as does infrastructure projects, can be as transformative as the capital investments that we make. And one of the things that we hope to achieve in this planning and this study is to identify the barriers to integration and how we would overcome them both in the short, medium, and long term. So as we note in this slide, there are different fares for similar journeys in different parts of the region. And we have an issue where there are longer trips. People are paying more than one fare. Go currently operates out of 19 rail stations and 8 bus terminals, and in those areas we connect with many of the local operators, and in the case of Toronto, 10 subway stations and the Scarborough Rapid Transit. And with a few exceptions, customers wishing to transfer between local transit, bus, and TTC within the city are required to pay a second full fare. So what we will be examining in the fare and service integration work is looking at specific transit trips, in particular trips across municipal boundaries, long-distance trips within a municipality, and trips with multiple transit service providers. Not all transit trips within each GTHA municipality. There are several fare and service integration initiatives already underway, so we're not starting from zero. The co-fares, we have a very well-received co-fare system between GO Transit and many local transit agencies in the 905 area. We have some free transfers among transit agencies in the 905 area itself. Zoom and Viva, for example, on Highway 7 in York Region, and Zoom, this is Brampton Zoom, and Mississauga My Way services on the Huron-Ontario Street in Mississauga. The diagram you have in front of you tries to outline the steps related to the scope of our work, and I'm just going to, because it's hard to read. Sorry, it's very hard to see. We will start by, it's going to take us roughly 2 years to get to the full extent of this work, but we will have significant progress in 2014. The first is really to look at local and global practices to understand how others address the issue of fare and service integration. We will then look at the opportunities that exist within this region and have pursue 2 streams of work, a strategic GTHA service structure, and a selection of fare policy and framework. And in parallel with that, that's the step 3, we'll be continuously looking at opportunities for quick wins. So there's one identified here in particular with the opening of the Spadina subway expansion, looking at improved ways of fare integration between York Viva, the TTC subway expansion, and ourselves of the Go Bus network. We also, as examples of quick wins, we are looking as well at the Liberty Village area. We've been received a request from the City of Toronto to identify whether we can improve the access and deal with local congestion issues at that location. Once we have identified both the service structure, a possible strategic service structure, and a fare policy framework, we will begin to identify how we would implement and phase in the strategies themselves, and that will become part of an input to our proposed and required legislative review of the overall plan that it has to be completed by 2016 as set out by our legislation. Just to recap the timing, the fall, winter so going into early next year, we will have completed the practice review and needs and opportunities. The quick wins we will begin to look at summer or fall of next year. And also summer or fall, we will have developed the service structure and the fare policy options. And looking to the subsequent fall of 2015, to have completed the implementation strategies for both fare and service options. As with everything we do, this will be developed in consultation with our key stakeholders across the region, most of all being, of course, the transit providers themselves. And we will use the existing Metrolinx Transit Leaders Forum and Metrolinx Planning Leaders Forum as a senior table for providing guidance on our work. And there will be a series of technical advisory groups as well with municipal and transit officials. We will also reach out to the public to generate discussion around the issue. And our first consultation with the general public will occur in the new year. So this next steps just summarize a bit of that, and I am happy to take any questions.
Chris, do you want anything?
No, I'm good.
It's a really important project. It really is. Really important project. Richard, why don't you go first?
Yeah, just one thing in terms of our Customer Service Advisory Committee, maybe another source
Yes.
to you in terms of providing some feedback.
Yes.
We're actually on the agenda to present at the next meeting.
Great.
Thanks.
Rahul?
I'm going to assume that there's a willingness amongst the parties to come up with a solution, and I'm starting to see some momentum. So if you want to comment on it, that's one thing. The more specific question is this a high enough priority amongst our partners, given that there's so many things out there that we're trying to do and others are trying to do in this space? This is such a no-brainer for the consumer, the customer, the rider. Does this have a high enough priority yet?
I would say the momentum has been building insofar as many of our partners and the operators and ourselves are recognizing that integrated fare and service is actually a very the amount of effort that we can put into it in terms of resolving, in particular, service integration, the benefits are huge payback. So I would say 3 years ago, it may not have been strong on the radar, but it has, and with this effort, has become much more so. Is it A1? Not quite yet.
Quick follow-up. Who's really driving this? Where's the leadership coming from? Is it coming out of Metrolinx?
It's coming out of Metrolinx.
Deal with TTC, which is 75% of all rides in the region. And really simple-mindedly, what people mean by fair integration usually means paying less. That is not 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 1.5. And that's what we do when I ride a Durham Transit bus and get on the GO train, or vice versa. I get a discount on I pay 65 cents or something instead of $2.65 to get on the Durham Transit bus. So I understand it as a reduction, but someone bears the revenue reduction. And I've always thought the reason we don't have integration between TTC and GO is it's too expensive. There are too many darn people who get off the GO trains and get on the TTC, or vice versa. And if we give a discount, so how do we overcome the financial problem with our biggest partner, where I assume by far the most people are going to be people getting on and off the trains and onto the TTC? How do you think about it? Finances didn't look like it was a big part of this work plan, and I thought finances were at the heart of the problem.
It is a large part of what the study is going to look at, so it's a bit premature in sort of identifying the order of magnitude, albeit to say it will be significant. This is not, when we look at, in particular, an integrated fare structure, we're going to have to understand the cost and the benefits. And that's going to be a very complex discussion, in particular with the City of Toronto, because as you describe it, it's quite a large, it's a very large ridership. We don't, what I would point out is we are focusing on the interface with the local operators, operator to operator. So it would not, so we'd have to look at it step by step. And I'm looking to Chris to add.
I think we're trying to look at it from two perspectives. One is if we were to start from scratch and we were to set up an integrated service structure and an integrated fare structure, what would it look like? And that's sort of the Metrolinx leadership. And then the other aspect of it is, so where we're at now, what are appropriate steps over time to move in that direction? So there are a number of steps, for instance, on the service side that don't mean moving rapid transit lines. It's making sure customers have the information they need at the interchange. It's a lot of the mobility hub kinds of concepts that are involved. On the fare side, it doesn't mean just looking at how can somebody do a trip they do today for less money. It's looking at markets that may not be served. So, for instance, we're not looking at saying, is there a way for someone to travel way across the region for one local fare? Rather, it's saying, does our current fare structure not provide value for money for some trips? So there are some short trips that cross a boundary that really aren't value for money for people. Right. Now that we have the Presto system, there are ways that you can logically implement value for money on those kinds of things. So it's making sure we do the market work.
Is the frame of reference, and I'll turn to Bruce, is the frame of reference, assume we were all merged, all 10 service providers were a single one, and yet a single board and a single management team. Are we asking the question, what would the fare structure look like for that? Because that's kind of a totally imaginary exercise, hypothetical, theoretical, or are we looking at what are some marginal adjustments we can make in the existing fare by distance for us, no fare by distance for others, da-da-da-da-da. Which are you?
So we're doing both. We're actually doing both. So, so you're speaking to the issue of governance, and so we will look at both directions, as Chris pointed out. So we'll,
purely hypothetical,
hypothetical, and then what I would say, the incremental, step by step. We feel we have to do both.
That's interesting. That's good. Sorry, you want to say something?
No, that's fine. Just a couple of comments. One is, we aren't the only jurisdiction facing these issues and having to deal with these issues. And I think looking at other jurisdictions, I'd like to emphasize Montreal as an example that has, similar to us, a regional commuter authority and local transit authorities, but they have been able to develop an integrated fare structure that doesn't go all the way in terms of total integration, but does provide for some effective solutions for customers that are traveling long distances and across boundaries. The other thing, this is a cost item, but it's also about how do you build ridership and how do you look at the network as a system as opposed to individual pieces. And I think if we think about it more as rather than what's the right governance, but what's the right system for the region, I think we may come up with some interesting solutions. And I just like to add Leslie's comment about who's showing leadership in this area. There is discussion going on with some local councillors in the city of Toronto and in other communities that actually are showing leadership in this area. So I wouldn't want to suggest that we have an exclusive role in this space, that the TTC has shown and expressed an interest in places like Exhibition Station, and how do we integrate between a Liberty Village area, Exhibition, and into Union Station. So there is, I think, the basis to start looking at how we can move towards some better integration, not just on a systemic big bang basis, but also on a very much an incremental basis.
So have the leaders of the other transit systems, most particularly TTC, signed off on this work plan?
So I'm pretty sure we've consulted with them on the terms of reference, because we have to go out with the terms of reference to retain a consultant to assist us with this. And so, as with most everything we do, we have a series of tables where we keep them informed, and working groups as well, so yes.
So if we were to ask the chair of TTC, and she were to ask the chief general manager, whatever the title is now,
CEO.
is the CEO, is this work, is that, I read about, in fact, Metrolinx is moving ahead on fare integration.
Yes, they have a.
Would they say, terrific, we've signed off on that work plan and we love it? Or would they say, well, I'm not so sure?
So, I'm not sure what they'll say, but they have assigned dedicated staff to work with us on this file, which to me shows a level of commitment.
Great.
Of course, the question of cost comes up as the first question for all operators, as it should.
Any other questions on this subject? This is really important work. Hard, but important. Thank you very much. Good luck. Chris, make sure we hear about this from time to time, okay? Through Leslie's quarterly report and the like, but we should make sure we hear about how this is going. That brings us to Leslie and Beth. Where's Beth? Come on up. This is design excellence. This has been a recurring theme over the last 18 months or so at Metrolinx, to see how we can elevate our commitment to design excellence in all we do, and it's urgent as we now are going deeply into the ground with Eglinton Crosstown. So over to you guys.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. I'd like to introduce Beth Kapusta. Beth is our new Chief Design Excellence Officer, and we are privileged to have this level of expertise in our organization. And Beth is going to do most of the presentation about where we are on the initiative, but in particular, I'd like to thank the board for its support of this initiative, because it is quite transformative. As you'll see when in Beth's presentation, it is taking what we do to another level.
Thank you, Leslie.
Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Just like to give you a little bit of background on how we define design excellence at Metrolinx. We see good design as inspiring people and building communities and pride of place. This very much ties into the kind of city building agenda that's been recognized earlier. Good design involves the interplay of functionality, resiliency, beauty, and value. It ensures that public dollars are produce thoughtful and cost-effective results. Our definition is driven deeply by that notion of functionality, sustainability, accessibility, as we see AODA compliance as more and more of a responsibility, beauty, value, and the economic viability that we use to assess each project. But one of the things that's come up more and more as we see in our branding and strategy material is that we've got a new focus on customer experience, which underlines all of our work. Over the life cycle of transit buildings, good design should not cost more. An investment in design has many net community and tangible benefits, including catalyzing urban growth, increasing building sustainability, durability, and the vital lifespan, increasing ridership, and improving all aspects of the customer experience, from comfort, safety, as well as engendering pride in transit. In the long term, it also reduces maintenance costs. And you can see by this diagram at the right that design is a very, very small portion of the overall cost, but with a huge effect on how operations, which constitute more than 80% of building cost, are borne out over the long term. Design excellence is building on a very strong legacy that we see manifest in projects such as the Union Station train shed, which was the recipient of a 2012 Canadian Architect Award of Excellence, and the work on Up Express, which was recently awarded the Global Air Rail Award for Project of the Year. One of our more recent accomplishments is the institution of a design review panel that's modeled after best practices at our peers at the City of Toronto and the Waterfront Design Review Committee. I can attest to the fact that it's a high-functioning but very pragmatic team drawn from leading experts and relevant professions in the GTHA area. I need to, just as a point of clarification and accuracy on this slide, note that Chris Hardwick is not currently a member of this team, but all of the other team members are accurate. The design review process looks at projects in excess of $10 million at mobility hubs and in highly public-facing locations. We review most of our projects twice. We offer very clear and unified constructive support with conditions, or reject recommendations. And this kind of pointed pragmatism is really about making sure that we're working on the side of our operations teams to ensure that we're not causing any delay to the project, and we're being very clear with our consultants about what's recommended. Our panel includes 5 panelists chaired by myself and external panelists from architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design. A review of the impact of what we do will be provided to you annually. This is an example of one of the projects that was brought to us partway already in design development, but you can see that through the process, the comments that were given as part of the design review are manifest in a project that has an improved public realm, more simplified use of materials that are in keeping with the GO brand guidelines that are now starting to make their way through every project we do.
Just back up. For a layperson, how do we know the one's better than the other? Because I happen to like the one better than the other, but so what? That's one person's view. That's just kind of gut. How do I know from a design excellence team that one of those is an improvement over the other?
The review team would have looked very carefully at the plans, at the elevations, about the way the flow work, about the way the public space in front of the building works. And it works a lot like a real jury. It's a peer group who has very trained eyes in understanding what the indicators of good design would be. Often it's very site-specific as well. For the Crosstown project, we have recently completed a final draft of a design excellence document, which provides a set of concrete principles and requirements upon which bid compliance will be assessed. It provides guidance through a set of demonstration designs, as well as precedents that set a high bar for design expectations. And this document will go out as part of the PSOS, which is a legally binding requirement for the proponent teams. PSOS is a performance specification that sets all of the requirements from design down to operational expectations. During the proponent selection process, we will also be quite involved. We will be represented at the more than 10 design review meetings that will go on during the 44-week open bid period. We have assembled a special design compliance review panel already briefed on both the process and the design requirements to evaluate the submissions. And a checklist of requirements will be distilled from this document for the assessment of design compliance as a pass-fail criteria through the open bid period. Always with the intent that we want strong, compliant designs that meet not just the design expectations, but all of the other expectations for the project. Next steps for us include implementing and developing Go Transit Urban Design, Architecture, and Landscape Guidelines, the integration of design excellence into our procurement processes, especially as we look forward to Shepherd, East, and Finch further down the line. We are incorporating processes to track design review panel recommendations so that they can be more easily communicated with the public and with the board. And we're also undertaking outreach to design professionals to apprise them of the changes that are underway. Thank you.
Good job, Beth. Made a hell. How long have you been here now?
9 months.
Huge progress. Congratulations on
Thank you
that.
very much.
And Mary Ann, congratulations to you because you got us started on this journey probably 9 months before that.
I would like to just thank the staff for their Herculean efforts, because 9 months, is a very short period of time, and I think the kind of benchmark that we've arrived at now is a very important stepping stone to delivering high quality transit to the GTHA. Question.
Sure, no, take the floor.
Can I ask about art? How art? I'm assuming that signage is integrated into your PSOS process. How do you handle art? Because just as Rob asks you about to understand and interpret design, and I think that is a professional duty and obligation, and something that we are as architects and designers trained to do. In the issue of art, I know these things are very subjective. And are you working with someone who is an art consultant who actually has a deep expertise in terms of looking at bringing art, integrating art over the longer term? Hopefully we deal with design excellence first and sort of flow through the art. But how are you handling that aspect of it?
We are right now writing a policy that will be Metrolinx wide for the incorporation of art in capital projects. There is a specific policy that pertains to Crosstown, and we will be bringing a integrated art advisor in as part of the project team working on the Metrolinx side. So the allocation for public art, we will work with the advisor and the eventually the project team to verify where public art makes sense, how it makes sense, and to use a professionally led jurying process that's kind of an industry best practice to select artists.
We've heard a lot about this design excellence as it's been evolving. There may not be any need for further discussion other than to reinforce our full support for the work you're doing and ask that if you're ever feeling you're being ground out of the process with the weight of engineering and budgets and everything else we bring on you, that you speak up and let us know, and we'll have your back. Does anybody want to raise anything else? Richard, last word.
Just a thought, because I've been engaged with another organization that actually took on a lot of art and actually created a whole network. And what they did is they actually created a art foundation. And I'm just wondering whether that might be something we might want to think about in the future in terms of, should we create something like that? Because we could end up with, because of the size of our network, a significant amount of art. And that might be a way to kind of manage it in a different way, with opportunity for people to kind of put money into it.
maybe Bruce could speak to you about that experience and learn about it. So you,
Just,
You may want to talk.
yeah,
just in that regard, for those of us who aren't in that art business but end up having to deal with art, we should also make sure we're inclusively looking at new digital media and art, because that may give us an extraordinary opportunity for change and a less challenge with collection management. So I'm sure that will come up anyway. But
That is part of the crosstown mandate.
excellent. Thank you very much. Leslie, thank you very much for your leadership in getting this here. That brings us to the Young Eglinton Station. TV Jack is our presenter.
Returned with us.
Our star.
Yes.
Jack's voice is going on it, so.
You're looking good, though. You're looking very good. Hair is looking great.
I'm going down. Underground for a few years.
Is John gonna do the talking?
I'll just do a brief, for the last 18 months, we 18 months ago, the board authorized the selection of HDR to come up with design concepts, more really functional concepts at Young Eglinton. It's one of our most complex stations in the system. We have to interface not only with the Toronto Transit Commission at one of their busy stations, but figure out how we laid out the light rail that's running under the north-south subway system. So we have the east-west light rail system that's under, and you have to build all that stuff and make it work and get passengers exchanging at this interchange station up and down. They came up with, since we have so many interested parties working with us, the TTC, us, and Build Toronto and the Toronto Planning Department, we went through something like 9 different concepts for how we make the station work and work to the benefit of all parties that are using the station. And John will explain on the concept that we've landed on and will advance through the final design process. John?
As Jack indicates, we work collaboratively with our principal stakeholders, City of Toronto and TTC and Build Toronto, to come up with a design that actually optimizes the functioning of Young Eglinton Station. The original EA design had some challenges, and there was a need to move forward and address a few issues. Seamless passenger transfer was a very important issue, and given the value that we put on a quality customer experience, it's certainly important for us to look at that. But also, we needed to look at other factors, such as the high profile of this station. Young Eglinton is considered by most as the most complex interchange station and probably the highest profile station of the crosstown. We needed to consider the distinctive qualities of design excellence, and I'll preface the presentation to say whatever you see in terms of images in this presentation are for constructability and simply to help us understand. This whole station has to go through the full design excellence process once we get into the bid process. Also, we were looking at providing an architectural and urban context that encourages development in that area, and hence one of the reasons that we were working with Build Toronto as we went forward in that process. So just to put into context so that you can see where the station fits, you can see Yonge Street running north and south and Eglinton running east and west, and that's an overlay of the station. This is the concourse level that you can see here, which is 1 level below street level. The yellow at the bottom, the colors are a little off, but the big yellow section at the bottom is the existing TTC subway. The blue or teal sections are back office, so technical rooms. It's not public space. And the lime green area are new concourse areas, widened concourse areas, also contain some retail space. And just to the left and right of those lime green areas, you can see, I hope it looks brown, those are new fare paid areas that allow access down into the new light rail system. So just to highlight some of the other features of this station, the The west LRT entrance, the new main entrance on Eglinton, is designed to adapt into a future build Toronto site. So what we construct now is designed to be overbuilt at a later date when development comes into place. A new east secondary entrances is connected to the developments on the north and south of Eglinton, including upgraded passageways into the station. I mentioned we've got an expanded upper concourse to allow more space for flow between the developments and also opportunity for retail in that area. Accessibility is also considered, and we're upgrading the accessibility features in that area. As well, the overall station design includes an upgrade to TTC's fire life safety facilities in their subway. This is just a visual of what that west entrance could look like in the future once it's overbuilt. This is on the abandoned bus facility that's just south of Eglinton and west of Yonge Street in that corner. The low building right to the left of where it says Eglinton Yonge LRT, that's BMO. For those of you familiar with that area. And that's Eglinton that goes across the front. We're looking south there, so that's that west entrance.
So there's a building right on the corner of Yonge and Eglinton in this imagination, and this is one door west of that?
Yeah, it's west of BMO.
On this slide, it's on the west side.
If you look on this slide, it's the brown and blue to the left. Where the entrance is. So, and you can see that the abandoned bus facility there.
Bill Toronto is very interested in looking at this whole area and redeveloping the old bus depot after we get the station built. We'll use this immediate area as a construction laydown area, but they have a development plan for after. And this station, this is a concept at one time. They actually are approaching Metrolinx right now in integrated station entrance with a high rise that would be built on that corner.
It would eliminate that BMO building as well.
I think it would integrate the BMO building. Yeah. The BMO building wouldn't necessarily go away. It'd be just to the west of that. That's future development that's still underway. The good news there is that we're designing that entrance such that it can accommodate that development in the future. In terms of layout and constructability, so it can be added on in the future once the design is finalized and Bill Toronto gets whatever approvals they need for whatever design they want to go forward with.
And they're prepared to pay the beefing up of the foundations to accommodate that integrated building at some future date. But we have to get on with building the station and making sure it functions as a main entrance to start development would follow.
Oh, some additional, so we're at the schematic layouts here? No, some additional design features of this station include, we've covered that slide, so let's move on. So this is a schematic of the station itself, just to give us a sense of the flow. So on the left side, we have the upper concourse. That's what we were just looking at in the previous slide. This is one layer down below street level. In the green at the top, at the left is the west entrance, and at the right is the east entrance. And the arrows show flow down from those entrances into the green areas and down into the LRT. In the middle where it says TTC platform level, that's another level down, a second level down. This is illustrating the fact that we worked to improve the connection between the light rail and the subway in order to improve transfer time at that location. Previous designs had passengers going up and over through the upper concourse. This will allow us to create a direct connection between the LRT and the subway. The way we accomplish that is by shifting the subway platform about 70 meters to the north, and that creates a better cross between the platforms and a better flow distribution so that the passengers aren't loaded towards one end or the other. Plus it creates the direct connection. The next illustration is the lower concourse, which is one level below the subway station, and that's the distribution concourse. where people move, passengers move back and forth between the LRT and the subway. In that top blue illustration in the corner, you can see the illustration where the lowest level is the light rail, and then move up one level, and that's the distribution concourse, and that concourse allows direct connection to the subway. And this is just an illustration of what it could look like coming in from the west entrance. The up escalators on the left side take us up to the west entrance at street level at Eglinton, and the other escalators take us down to the LRT. And this is another visualization looking east from the west entrance, parallel to Eglinton. The escalators on the left take us down to the LRT, and in the far back right, the escalators up to the right take us up to BMO. That's the existing bank building there. As far as timelines are concerned, we expect early works and utilities to start in the spring of 2015, excavation start early 2016, start of the actual station construction in the spring of 2017, and construction complete in 2020. Construction isn't without its impacts. This is a very complex station with a lot of critical work that affects the subway platform, and that means that in order for us to complete that work, there will have to be some closures of the subway as we go forward. We don't expect any closures in peak hours. The closures we have planned for the weekends. We anticipate over about a 2-year period, roughly 50 weekend closures. Now, we're very cognizant of impact to the public and minimizing that. So we've had discussions with TTC, and we'll work with TTC to minimize the impact of those closures by collaborating with them to coordinate their planned work that could result in closures with our planned work and exercise those closures concurrently so that we can work together on them. Some elements of this station design are appropriate for cost sharing. Some of the design is there to improve connectivity between the various developments in the area. Upgrades to the TTC fire ventilation system, which is a benefit to their capital works program. It's something that they'd plan to do anyway in the future. This would just bring it up and have it done sooner, but it's work that they would do anyway. And as for the bus bridges, in other words, the bus detours for the closures, I just mentioned that we'll work together with the TTC to collaborate on those closures and cost share those bus bridges. So all in all, we're working together with the city and TTC on those cost sharing initiatives.
That's going to bridge from Lawrence down to Davisville?
Yes.
Wow.
Big.
Yeah, it's a long bridge.
So that concludes the presentation. So the purpose of the presentation today was to seek the board's recommendation to move forward with this design. Understand that this is a reference concept, and it will be placed into background information for the bidders. The bidders will then be asked to achieve the performance requirements of this, the passenger transfer times, and the critical elements. And then this will work with all of the other stations on the system through the bid review process, all of the design presentation meetings that we've spoken about before, the application of design excellence principles, and all of the reviews that take place. But the benefit of what we've achieved at this point is we've been able to work through a complex reference design, get the buy-in from some critical stakeholders, and understand that we do have a design that can be constructed, although the bidders will bring their own secret sauce to this and their own touch to it.
So the box we see on the street level conceptual visualization is a placeholder.
It's a placeholder.
That's not a design.
That's right.
Correct. It's a concept. And I'd just like to add to the board that this concept was presented to the Toronto Transit Commission about 2 weeks ago, and they also supported this concept.
Concept of this whole station.
The concept in terms of how the transfer works, and they actually are going to be giving up a pocket track, and that is where the new platform that's moved north for the subway, it will occupy that. So it has an operations impact on them, but with their ATC work that they're doing, they're confident that this is a much better configuration.
Questions to the team?
May
Marianne?
may I ask, maybe because design has become such a big issue, because the board is very supportive of good design. Maybe you should call it a planning study, because that's really what it is. This is a very complex station, many intricacies, and I understand that you're working with TTC on all aspects of this. But it really is a planning concept. It's not a design. You refer to it as a design that supports design excellence, and I would say I can't support that. But I think as a planning study that deals with the complexity, and these particular consultants are very expert at the complexity, I don't think it yet represents a design for the station. It's a planning option, or selected planning option. It's different.
You okay with that semantic change?
I'm fine.
Done. Sold. Good point. Any other questions? I saw Beth and Leslie nodding vigorously at Marianne's intervention. So they're with you. Any other questions? I see none. Thank you very much, John. Jack, excellent.
Thank you.
Well, Jack. We now have the quarterly reports. You'll recall that these reports are written by the heads of each of the lines of business to give us an update on anything that's going on, and we receive them so we can see the movie, if you will, of what's going on in the organization in each of the divisions. And we proceed only with questions, and given the time, they should be crisp questions if you have questions about what you've read here. I'm going to take us through them in order. The first is Kathy. Where's Kathy? Back there? Kathy, any questions to Kathy on the Express? Thank you, Kathy. Keep it on track. The next one is Robert Hollis and Presto. We've already had a good discussion of Presto, and we'll have more. Are there any questions on the report? I see none. Thank you, Robert. We have Greg Percy's first quarterly report. Greg, congratulations. Any tricky questions for Greg? Are we good? What's the biggest surprise in the job? Yeah. No surprises?
No, it's different scale of meetings.
Next one is Leslie. You've been on deck here 2 or 3 times already, Leslie. Any further questions to Leslie? Okay. Good report. Judy, where's Judy? Is Judy here? There's Judy. Any questions to Judy on communications? Very good. Jack, you've already spoken. Any questions to Jack on any other items? York Viva still full speed ahead? Great. How's the customer reaction on the first bit?
They're seeing quite a reduction in travel time
and questions to Robert Settle. We've had lots to you already, Robert, but you now have the economic analysis and investment strategy reporting to you. Any questions there? I won't ask you what's in the Golden Report. I guess we'll read it next week. That completes the quarterly reports. Does anybody have any question to any member of management on anything raised by their reports? Bruce, is there any matter you wish to raise with the board in public session before we go into executive session with you?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Does any member of the board have anything they want to raise before we go into in camera with the CEO? I see none. If I may say to all our visitors, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to go in camera with the CEO for a few minutes, and then we'll have a media. Where are we doing the media piece?
Just outside.
Just outside here in a few minutes. Thank you all very much for coming. Merry Christmas. If we don't see you, happy holidays.